Welcome, friends. Welcome. Thank you, as always. Thank you so much, really. It really is such a special opportunity for us to get together, study, contemplate, and meditate on, practice, embody the Buddha Dharma. It's such a sacred, special, very rare opportunity. So thanks for joining in, connecting in, turning that bright, shining wisdom, rainbow, compassion, light energy, turning it on within yourself to really connect with all beings in an uplifting, mutually beneficial way. So thank you so much. As we usually do, we'll have these three motivations, three ways to kind of refreshen that kind of naturalness in ourselves, or to like turn our minds toward the Dharma. And those three ways are renunciation, bodhicitta, and pure perception. So renunciation is joy and appreciation, this deep gratitude. So these 18 endowments we have. And so we can just really take a deep breath, feel our body, look around, look at all the beautiful things that we get to enjoy with these sense doors, sense organs that are working well. And then the sounds happen, and the colors happen, and the smells happen, and we're here. We have this life. We have these moments where we can generate virtue. That's such a rare, special opportunity. And so, wow, it's really kind of extraordinary. And so let's do that together now. We'll generate a very virtuous state of mind, this bodhicitta, awakened heart mind of enlightenment. Just shine that on, that naturalness, that this very moment, this time together, we really genuinely wishing, like aspiring, that this becomes a root condition that's just perfectly aligned with all beings everywhere, ourselves included. And it becomes just this, in every way, lovely kind of situation for beings that can't even help but like have love and compassion and wisdom blossom in their hearts and mind. Like may this time together, this reflection and this practice, may this become that condition for all beings to just wake up to their own inherent goodness. And then thirdly, there is this inherent goodness. We have it, each of us. We've always had it. We'll always have it, even if we don't see it and we get kind of lost in the maze of all of our kind of preoccupations and worries and doubts and fears and obsessions and all the things. We still have this goodness. It's a stainless, continuous, true nature, this Buddha nature that we have, Tathagata Garbha. And so we kind of just confidently, courageously, like kind of shine that on and be enlightened awareness, be our naturalness. So with these three qualities of exceptional, boundless gratitude and joy, this love and appreciation for all beings with a confident responsibility to free them from suffering and the causes of suffering, as well as seeing their goodness nature. There's no real reason to have to free anyone from anything. It's all already pure and enlightened and awakened. So we bring all these three together as an active living experience right now. Wonderful. So here we have these lineage teachings. We're connecting directly to the teachings of the Buddha, Guru Padmasambhava, and this stainless mountain range of lineage masters, all the way to our present living teachers. There's so many great realized beings around, and they've given us instructions on how to wake up and fully embody this Buddha nature, to like be an ongoing bodhicitta all the time. They've given us this guidance, these instructions. We have that available right now. And that's all that we're going to be reflecting on now, is this kind of living lineage of instructions, of kind of advice that they've given. And so specifically, the topic for this brief time together is called something like Imaginative Play Beyond the 8 Worldly Concerns. So imaginative play beyond the 8 worldly concerns. So that's this brief kind of theme we have for today or right now. And it's kind of somewhat a free form, but it's also free form within these lineage frameworks. So we have like all these lineage teachings. There's just a very tiny sampling here. But the general idea that I was kind of thinking of is like kind of this natural capacity we have to imaginatively, creatively kind of engage our experience. this imaginative capacity, this creative impulse. It's what an amazing thing that each of us has. And at the same time, in the Buddhist context, this functions best, or this is most natural, when it's not self-obsessed. When it's not held within kind of a framework of, look at my art, look at my offering. Basically, look at me. Or, in a one way, you could say more like psychologically, like, love me. Here's this awesome thing. Isn't it awesome? Won't you love me? I mean, isn't that kind of, we're always looking for this acknowledgement that I'm here too. And I'm really so great, right? So that's kind of like the little bit of the game we've been playing, kind of, that we're kind of like automatically like making everyone play our game all the time. And so the question is, how do we play this? How do we kind of engage this creative impulse we have, this extraordinary capacity to really vibrantly engage in an elegant, graceful, spontaneous way? How do we do that in a Dharma way? In a way where it's not all about me. It's actually about all of us. And it's about all beings. And it's about all manifest and unmanifest reality. So what is that in a Dharma context? How can we be artistic but not self-obsessed, or not so self-important, or not so self-centered, or so egotistical, or so kind of disproportionately emphasizing me and my art and my new novel thing? So how can we novelly, creatively like engage, and is that possible? To be natural and creative and spontaneous and have it not be a self-centered thing. Because my understanding of Buddhism, which is very tiny, is that that's what Tantra is all about. Talk about imaginative creative display, where it's not centered on me at all. And so what we'll do here is kind of in some ways unpack like how that's actually what visualization and dissolution stage practices are. That's what we're doing. We're creatively emanating this entire universe of spontaneous, artistic, kind of unfolding dynamic display. And then we're dissolving it, like it's allowing it to self-dissolve every time. So I think that's actually what in Buddhism, Tantra Mahayana is all about. And so we'll kind of build this up and try to get that and see if that's actually true. So we'll kind of explore this a little bit. And so in terms of the title, Imaginative Play, Beyond the 8 Worldly Concerns. So what are these 8 worldly concerns? What is the 8 worldly concerns? Going right to Inborn Realization. This is Venerable Khenpo Tsewang Dongyal Rinpoche's commentary on His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche's Mountain Retreat Instructions. Inborn Realization. And in this book, on page 36, Khenpo Tsewang Rinpoche says, His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche counsels us to give up the 8 worldly concerns. The 8 worldly concerns can be divided into 2 groups. The 4 that we want, and the 4 that we want to avoid. The 4 that we want are gain, pleasure or happiness, fame or high status, praise or sweet words. And the 4 that we want to avoid are loss, pain and suffering, obscurity or notoriety, and then blame or harsh words. So these 8 worldly concerns are also called the 8 worldly dharmas, or the 8 practices of samsara. The great master Longchenpa said that whoever is preoccupied by them is like a sick person in bed. No matter how often he or she changes position, it is impossible to find comfort. As long as our minds are captivated by thoughts and emotions, it's difficult not to engage in the 8 worldly concerns. We're trying to free our minds completely, but this takes time. So what should we do until then? We should strive for less attachment. One way to accomplish this is to see all phenomena as dreams, illusion, or magic. Another way is to remember impermanence. What we want is impermanent. What we get is impermanent, and we ourselves are impermanent. When death comes, everything we have and know, including our self-identities, must be abandoned. If we truly accept this, we will stop wanting so much and so intently. We will better value what we have and what we are. Our empathy will grow because we'll know that all beings are subject to impermanence and death, just as we are. Our self-importance will diminish because we realize that death can come at any time and we have no control over it. Overall, our lives will be more peaceful and productive. In addition to contemplating impermanence and death, we should try to remember that even if we successfully navigate our way around the 8 worldly concerns, if we have not attained any spiritual stability, we will not secure happiness. His Holiness writes, the 8 worldly dharmas can be condensed into hope and fear, which means attachment and aversion. Hope and attachment refer to what we want. Fear and aversion refer to what we do not want. What we want and do not want are manifestations of our minds. Our minds are infinite and pure. Whenever possible, we should tune into this. So here, Rinpoche, Khenpo Samye Dongyal Rinpoche has laid out some very pithy advice on what the 8 worldly concerns are, how to work with them, or kind of open our mind in a way that's not so oriented around these 8 worldly concerns. And then why we should do that, because our mind is actually pure and perfect already. So these 8 worldly concerns are essentially hope and fear, and they all orient around a sense of me. In Buddhism, it's called ego clinging or self-grasping. Me, what do I want? What do I want to avoid? And so here they are. We've heard them a million times. Gain, pleasure, fame, and praise. That's what we want. What we want to avoid, loss, pain, obscurity, and blame. So basically, we want to be the center of the universe that everyone recognizes is the most special feature of everything. I mean, it's kind of so, to say it in a way is really kind of ridiculous, but isn't that what we do? I mean, and to some degree, it's not bad. If I have this tea, then what do I want? I want to have the tea. I want the taste and maybe the little kind of like spark of like waking up. And that's all. It doesn't have to be selfish, but if I'm doing it with a motivation of wanting to get something, I look at an object like tea, and my mind's like, I'm not quite there yet. What this tea will make me actually be better, brighter, happier, more awake. This is called conditioned existence. Because if all of a sudden the tea makes me choke, or I drop the cup and there's no tea, or there's any things that could happen with this, so many things, that it could lead to actual suffering. And at the very least, once the tea's out, then I don't have the support to actually have my mind be happy. Because I'm depending on this external thing to have a sense of happiness, contentment. So basically, instead of recognizing the state of my mind in a way where it's naturally self-satisfied or content, I'm looking outside of my mind and relying on things around to make me happy. And then a lot of stuff out there doesn't make me happy. It actually makes me unhappy. And so I try to avoid it. So anytime we're in this kind of a framework, it's called the 8 worldly concerns. So Buddhism's hardcore. We're trying to come out of orienting around that, where I'm trying to have the world make me happy, and I'm trying to avoid the parts of the world that make me not happy. Right? So that's basically operating in a kind of a way of holding my mind in the 8 worldly concerns. So it comes down to hope and fear. And to finally come out of hope and fear, how do we do that? All these teachings talk about look at how things are. Look really closely at how things work. How do things outside work? How does the mind work? If we really look closely with logic, with our own intelligence, in a really thorough way and keep that investigation open, we'll actually have a more accurate experience of what's happening. We'll be more attuned to cause, condition, and effect. That's why they say this in some ways is just a scientific analysis, Buddhism. But it actually is a scientific analysis also of the mind. So it's this meditation. And if we map that mind, it can be considered a philosophy. And if we apply that in our daily life, it can be considered a way of life, a transformative practice, a path. So how do we do that analysis to come out of these 8 worldly concerns, which are pervasive? Anytime, if you ever think, I'm out of the 8 worldly concerns, well, first off, you thought that, so you're not. Because that thought is actually indicating grasping. They say Buddhas don't think. So if we have a thought, and we reaffirm the thought, then we're a sentient being. So that's a good check right off the bat. We're not out of the 8 worldly concerns just yet. So in this progressive stages of meditation on emptiness by Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso Rinpoche, he's talking about this analysis. How do we look closely so we come out of the 8 worldly concerns? So we can recognize how our mind is already pure and perfect, right? And that's the basis of Tantra, of doing a Ngondro practice. This is kind of what we're assuming we're doing when we do a Ngondro practice. Taking this kind of view that the empty, clear nature of my mind is expressing itself as the mandala of the refuge tree, for example. So Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso Rinpoche says, page 22 in this book, at the end of our analysis, we'll arrive at the conclusion that the self is simply a vague and convenient concept that we project now here and now there onto a stream of experiences, and is nothing in and of itself. One may wish to maintain that sense of self, that it's the continuity of a stream of physical and mental events that constitute a personality, and that as such it does not have to have the characteristics of being a lasting, single, and independent entity. But this is simply a redefinition of the term self. It does not explain our emotional behavior at all. Buddhism is not telling anyone that he should believe that he has a self, or that he does not have a self. It is saying that when one looks at the way one suffers and the way one thinks and responds emotionally to life, it is as if one believed that there were a self that was lasting, single, and independent. And yet, on closer analysis, no such self can be isolated or found. In other words, the skandhas are empty of a self. This felt sense of me, even if I don't believe I'm a lasting, independent, permanent me, I still feel like I am. This is a deeper layer of habitual mind or orientation than propositional beliefs. This is like a way I fundamentally orient every single kind of moment of experience. This felt sense of me. Buddhism calls that self. So how do I come out of that? Because as long as I have that felt sense of me, then it operates with the 8 worldly concerns, hope and fear. This is in one way like a little bit of a talk for artists, because I'm expressing myself, right? Buddhism says good art is when you don't express yourself, not from this fundamental fixated sense of me. Good art comes when we express ourselves not oriented in that way. And then it becomes actually wisdom art, wisdom expression, creative outreaching display of enlightened activity, which actually isn't just a nice piece of art. It's actually like an artful way of living that anyone who ever interacts with it is automatically uplifted towards a more easy situation for them to realize their own natural condition of mind, which is pure and perfect. So here in this book, Advice from a Spiritual Friend, a commentary on Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, again by Khenpo Dongyal Rinpoche, he talks on page 208 about egolessness. And he says, with this understanding, let's take a deeper look at egolessness. The state of egolessness is the absolute meaning. On the relative level, we have the sense of I, And no matter whether it really exists or not, our mundane experience involves clinging and holding strongly to this notion of a self. As a result, we end up doing many unwholesome things that do not benefit anyone. This happens because of grasping onto ego, attaching to the notion of a self. We're trying to get smarter about this. The teaching explains that there is no truly existent ego entity. What is the ego? It is a conception, one of our many thoughts. We grasp hundreds of notions every day, and the ego is one of them. Clinging and identifying with an ego distorts our reasoning and understanding of what is happening and what we're doing. Activities influenced by ego are often based on self-importance. This leads to numerous troubles and difficulties. In reality, there's no ego, no self, no duality, and no grasping. Whether we look among the aggregates or apart from them, it gradually becomes clear that there is no self to be found anywhere at all. The teaching explains this clearly, and when you realize it for yourself in the state of direct perception, it is known as vipassana, or clear seeing, because it is the truth. This is not imaginary, but the truth. Ooh, imaginative play, right? There's no solid core to anything, no permanent object in this samsaric world. Nothing exists in the way it usually appears, separate and differentiated. Appearances are like a hallucination. In the same way, the ego is an illusion. To see this exactly as it is known as supreme seeing. That is a great insight and the meaning of vipassana. If we're undiluted, phenomena appear exactly as they are. Things are neither ignored nor exaggerated, neither overstated nor understated, but just so. To keep up and deepen this meditation is the essential discipline. Once you take up the practice, continue until full realization. I'm jumping around, but this is all on a thread, right? I feel like. So, uprooting ego clinging. We're trying to say, okay, if we're not operating around the 8 worldly concerns, that means we have to recognize how we're holding on to a sense of me, a distorted perception of a fixated sense of self. And that how do we undo that fixated sense of self? If we're going to allow for our creative natural impulse, the wisdom, compassionate, outreaching quality of mind, if we're going to allow for it to display naturally, how do we do that? So that's where we're at. We're kind of locating this ego, and then we're kind of going into a few instructions about how to actually dissolve that unrealistic fixation. So here in Uprooting Clinging, commentary on Mipham Rinpoche's Wheel of Analytic Meditation by both Venerable Khenpo Rinpoches. Here it's on page 58. This is talking about these aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. They say all of phenomena, outer and inner, are one of these aggregates to their combination. Each aggregate appears like the reflection of the moon and water, a mirage or a banana tree. In each case, there's no essence, no solid existence. They are all based on impermanence. They exist in a momentary and changeable state. This investigation leads us to the conclusion that the world of experience is an illusion. And since this world is an illusion, there's no need to be attached. Attachment and clinging are foolish, unnecessary, and unwise. If the world consists of nothing but the 5 aggregates, and they have no more reality than a reflection of the moon and water or a mirage, then all attachment must also be based on illusion. Maintaining awareness of this is the practice of meditation. The result of a thorough and focused investigation is the development of definitive understanding. The perfect understanding we gain through the use of this mental analysis isn't something we need to believe in. This awareness is certainty wisdom. When we meditate in this way, using this analytic meditation, old habitual patterns will continually activate clinging and attachment, but if we maintain the meditation, we'll clearly see that even birth and death are illusions. Birth and death are just habitual patterns. The continued application of this analytic meditation will eventually lead us to discover the transcendental wisdom rainbow body that is beyond habitual patterns. In the Dzogchen teachings, there are many stories of how great masters developed such an elevated realization of the transparency of reality, based on the realization of the empty, illusory nature of everything, that they could even move through material objects. They could do this because they had actualized the true nature and thoroughly realized how apparent reality is constructed. The Tibetan phrase for relative truth of how things appear is Kunzop Dempa, or Samvriti Satya in Sanskrit. The literal translation of this is the truth that is completely superficial, artificial, or unreal. That's the definition of relative truth in Buddhism. The truth that is completely superficial, artificial, or unreal. The process of investigating using this technique of analytic meditation is so important because it establishes a foundation upon which there can be proper development. Without it, even if it appears that we're progressing, there will be difficulty later. Any progress made without this foundation will eventually collapse. The definitive understanding or the view established by analytic meditation is to not be attached to any aspect of reality. Arriving at this state of awareness that is beyond attachment causes us to perceive everything as being in transit, moving, changing, and only manifesting on a temporary basis. From this point of view, it becomes clear that clinging and attachment inevitably brings suffering. It also becomes clear that when we no longer have attachment, anger will not develop in us. This is one of the principal understandings of Mahayana Buddhism. Renunciation doesn't mean being completely removed from the world. It simply means being detached. The Buddha left his royal palace to go to the jungle and meditate. That is one form of renunciation. But the more profound meaning of renunciation is having non-attachment that avoids clinging to worldly activities. Having no attachments is a much deeper form of renunciation than simply separating ourselves from objects of attachment. The whole idea or focus of renunciation is to attain a clear understanding of the state of non-attachment. When we have no attachment to worldly activities, the ideal of renunciation is realized. Then we can find enjoyment in every experience. This is what imaginative play is in Buddhism. When we have no attachment to worldly activities, the ideal of renunciation is realized. Then we can find enjoyment in every experience. So this is saying that samsara actually isn't a pit of vipers or like a deer trapped in the woods that are like have a ring of fire surrounded on all sides where we're just like waiting for the fire to come to us. It's actually perfect. Samsara is a function of grasping onto a fixated sense of self that's not actually there. So that's kind of what all these Sutra Mahayana teachings are kind of orienting us towards. How to actually dissolve this fixation, and that just means how to have non-attachment with the experience we have, meaning how to not funnel our experience through a sense of egoic me. And then we can access that creative imaginative play of how experience happens when it's not funneled through a fixated sense of me. So how is that? What's that experience like? And that would be what I would call like imaginative play beyond the 8 worldly concerns. And this book, I just kind of came across recently, it's not that new, Powerful Transformation, The Alchemy of the Secret Heart Essence. This is a compilation of teachings, Padma Sambhava, Chudra Lingpa, Kabje, Dudjom Tersar Rinpoche, and Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, and others. So this is now we're going into, what's it like to not fixate through egoic meanness. So in this, page 7, the most considerable of all obstacles are the innermost ones, which involve fixating on perceiver and perceived. Basically, this refers to our habit of dualistic experience, which is caused by a lack of stability in the original basic state of empty cognizance. When this empty cognizance is not stable in itself, its expression is to reach out and fixate on the 5 objects of experience, the 5 sense objects. They are the perceived. The perceiver is the mind that fixates upon them. Although this basic original state of self-existing wakefulness has no duality whatsoever, because we fixate on experiences as being something other, seemingly duality takes place. As it continues, this perpetuation of dualistic experience is exactly what characterizes the minds of all sentient beings. Perceived and perceiver. The minds of sentient beings are caught up in fixating on perceiver and perceived. This is the very core of samsaric experience, and this is in itself our innermost obstacle. Okay, so here we get into the Vajrayana component. So what's it like to not operate through perceiver and perceived? This is kind of where we're kind of headed. And it's what the Ngondro practice actually assumes. Want to bring me home? I'm going to pause on this book. Great. So where this opens us up into is the three samadhis. So this is a teaching the Venerable Khenpo Rinpoches have taught on so many times. In this book of theirs, Essential Journey of Life and Death, Volume 1, Indestructible Nature of Body, Speech, and Mind. They have a really wonderful explanation of the three samadhis. And it's also talked about by Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche in this book, Powerful Transformation, and in so many of these books. The three samadhis. So this is actually how we orient every single visualization practice, so creation stage practice or imagination stage practice. This is how we orient that in Tantra Mahayana, so in Vajrayana or Tibetan Buddhism. So they go through the three samadhis. So just to say them quickly, the first samadhi is the true nature samadhi. The second samadhi is the all arising or all illumination samadhi. And the third is the seed syllable samadhi or the causal samadhi. So to put this really simply, the first samadhi or concentration, this way our mind is aware. The first samadhi, the true nature samadhi, is having the mind know itself in a way that doesn't fixate on an egoic sense of me. It's just fresh and natural. So the true nature samadhi is recognizing the emptiness nature of mind. So this is what all these instructions said we need to do, to experience life with non-attachment, to see it as illusion, as a hallucination, as magic. This is all, it's impermanent. It's pointing out that we see the external world like that, and we look at the perceiver in that way too. It's just like an illusion, magic show, hallucination, this ongoing experience of transitory kind of like bubbling up or like movement of mind. So true nature samadhi is seeing that flexible, open quality of mind that's doing that. Buddhism typically calls that emptiness. That's the true nature samadhi. So that's step one. As the beginning of any visualization practice, we're trying to have our mind rest in its nature, open, flexible, and allowing for the impermanent nature of everything, outer and inner, perceiver and perceived, to flexibly, impermanently display as they will. Then this goes into the second samadhi, naturally. It's just typically in Sutra Mahayana called compassion. Here it's called the all-arising samadhi, or all-illuminating, or all-illumination samadhi. And this is when our mind is open and relaxed, it naturally has a cognizant quality. There's a knowing quality. There's an energetic quality. This awareness is always happens. The mind is always open and aware. They're inseparable. But here, this specific samadhi is called compassion without focus. All arising. The natural way the mind is when it doesn't hold itself around a fixed sense of me and mine is it's totally open without boundary or limit, and it naturally arises as knowledge, as knowing quality, as wisdom. This is referred to sometimes as clarity. So compassion without focus means it's compassion that it doesn't arise in response to something, so it's not conditioned compassion. It's a natural quality of compassionate intelligence or cognizance. It includes knowledge. It includes knowing. This is called compassion without focus, or all-arising samadhi. And so then when this knowing or this awareness crystallizes itself, it's called the seed syllable samadhi, or the causal samadhi. So here's when we get into a sense of causation, or things interacting. Because in seed syllable samadhi, this arises as a syllable. This I'm talking about is my mind. So it's just total open emptiness awareness, naturally includes all experience with great like inclusivity, or like cognizant, kind of boundless cognizance, knowing. And then that kind of in one way gathers itself into a more solid, tangible form, which is still on this semi-form, and it's called seed syllable. And it's this crystallized, distilled, that Rinpoches call it like a nuclear, kind of like inner nucleus of awareness. And in Tibetan Buddhism, this is called Lung Sem, wind and mind, or wisdom, wind and mind. This is emptiness and compassion in union inseparably. And they say this is actually the indestructible nature of body, speech, and mind, the subtitle of this book, Essential Journey of Life and Death. Union of emptiness and compassion indivisibly arises in a very crystallized, essential nuclear power form as a seed syllable. This is actually what's in the heart center of every yidam, or deity, when we're doing a visualization practice. They say it's actually what's in our heart center right now. This union of wisdom, wind, and mind is always there. When we're alive, when we're dying, when we're dead, when we're after dead, when we become, when we re-arise in some new body, it's always a wisdom, wind with awareness, with mind. Always. That's what Tantra is pointing to when it's called Tantra, or Gyu, continuity. What's continuous? Wisdom, wind, inseparably united with awareness, or Rigpa. This is indestructible. It's always there, but it's empty. So it's not a thing, it's not a self. This is the basis, this is how imaginative display, this is the source of imaginative play in Tibetan Buddhism, of all Tantra. So with Sutra Mahayana, we established the emptiness nature. In Shentong, or fourth turning, we established the creative, outreaching capacity of like brilliance, called Buddha nature. These are inseparably joined. Wisdom and compassion, or wisdom and skillful means, or emptiness and clarity. This is called Tantra. Now we're in Yana 4. Yana 4, so Yana 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is all inner Tantras. So now we're talking about imaginative play beyond 8 worldly concerns. Okay, so that's kind of where we are here. And these 3 samadhis are the distilled, this is the doorway into Tantra. This is the beginning of every tantric practice. True nature samadhi, emptiness. All arising samadhi, boundless compassion. Distills into a tangible form, a heart essence, seed syllable samadhi, which arises as cause and effect in the sense of things interacting. Are they things interacting? No, because there are no entities. Everything's emptiness. This has already been established. We're in a state of mind that doesn't hold on to things as if they are things. Just rainbow display. But from this seed syllable, that then expands into a deity, a being with a shape and form, and it has hand objects and colors and ornaments, and then retinue, doing dazzling displays. This is called imaginative play beyond the 8 worldly concerns. This is what Tantra is pointing towards in the Buddhist sense. Union of emptiness and compassion. So is it possible to be an artist with no sense of me? Buddhism says this is the only way to be a true artist. Everything else is just an ego trip. Everything else is just a show. It's just 8 worldly concerns. Look at me. Praise. I'm just trying to get what I want. I'm hoping to get what I want. I'm fearing to get what I don't want. This is just samsara. It's just another way to do samsara, of the infinite ways to do samsara. We can do it as an artist, a booker, a baker, a candlestick maker. It doesn't matter. It's just about me. It's just an endless me game that leads to endless suffering. The way out in a Tantra approach is to use something like a technique of these 3 samadhis, and then we have the capacity to have this really dazzling burst of like all-powerful wisdom display that's totally outreaching with compassionate energy to support and uplift every single being with fine-tuned nuance, according to how do we co-create artistic moments of mind together. This is called Tantra in Tibetan Buddhism, and it always goes through a sadhana practice. There's always this lineage structure that, because I'm a little baby, I can't use high-powered tantra techniques as if I know how to use them. I'm just like learning basics, really basics. But these basics are just so powerful, like the 3 samadhis. They'll do everything. They'll bring up all these habitual ways that I've been grasping onto a sense of me, and all these games I've been playing that have led me to so much suffering and caused so much trouble for other beings. They'll reveal these habits. And then if I use this imaginative play within a sadhana context, and then use my body, speech, and mind, these ritual kind of enhancements, I can release giant iceberg chunks of all these distorted perception and mistaken ideas. And very quickly, and finally be like a really true artist. Where like everything is like artistic display that boosts everyone, not just all about me, all about all of us. And that's where Tantra is like a living system of skillful means art. And so we've jumped around, and there's certain things I kind of wanted to say. These 3 samadhis, these are things we really need to know, because they're actually what we're trying to do with every Ngondro practice, every Tibetan Buddhist practice. These 3 samadhis. Emptiness, arises compassion, with outreaching, unlimited, kind of like tangible shape, which is called seed syllable samadhi, and then does these enlightened expressions. And then how does it communicate? Through light. In this context, everything is seen as wisdom. So in the sutra context, they say it's like a rainbow. In the Tantra context, they say everything is transcendental wisdom rainbow. Rainbow display. Sound is, speech is, so speech, sound is, form, shape is, mind movement, it's all rainbow display, transcendental wisdom rainbow body. All of it. So this is an imaginative display, not funneled through egoic mehood. And so we can talk about this. We can talk about these things as if these 3 qualities of mind. The Buddha taught this so kind. He presented this in so many ways, depending on what would help beings. We can talk about this as substance, like seed syllable. Sometimes like the ground of all being, or Buddha nature. Like this nature is talked about as an object, even though it's empty of being an entity. You can talk about this nature as if it's a quality. This is like rang tong, empty of self. It has the quality of being inherent, as like empty of inherent existence, free of entityhood, free of identity, free of fixed characteristic, free of fixed destination, free of fixed source, free of fixed place of location, of abiding. It's free of all these things. These are qualities it has. Emptiness. And then thirdly, talk about it as a state of mind. Union of compassion and emptiness, of skillful means and wisdom. This is called Rigpa, true nature of mind. Naturalness, sometimes this is called wisdom, or Rangjun Yeshe, self-born wisdom awareness. Unborn, unceasing by nature like the sky, experienced by self-reflexive awarenesses, discerning pristine cognition. Discerning pristine cognition, Rangrik, this is the wisdom awareness, the union of emptiness and clarity in self-born awareness. It always has this energetic display. This is the union of emptiness and clarity. This is called Lungsem, or wisdom awareness, always riding a subtle wind. This is the indestructible nature of mind. And if we connect to this again and again in our practice, this is actually what will make us accelerate this whole path of being free of samsara, of these states of mind that make everything about me, that's 8 worldly concerns, that basically make everyone have to meet me on my terms all the time, where I use everyone just for my advantage. This is really the fundamental way to undo this really quickly, to do this 3 nature, like the 3 samadhis. Recognize emptiness and its clarity, knowing capacity in union as the display of all experience as the transcendental wisdom rainbow body. So when we visualize a refuge tree and Ngondro practice and ourselves and doing these mudras and making these offerings and doing this, we're trying to always maintain this state of transcendental wisdom rainbow body. The perceived is transcendental wisdom rainbow body. The perceiver is transcendental wisdom rainbow body. Transcendental meaning it's emptiness. Rainbow body meaning it's like it actually arises as like a display, as an empty appearance. Always in union. So it's emptiness and clarity in union. So then this becomes imaginative play. And then the playfulness is actually we have to tune in and line up with where other beings are at and what's skillful to help encourage them to relax and like have their own creative flow come out. Then we can co-create, co-shape, co-play. That's what kind of all these wisdom mandalas are all about. And that becomes like the way of the Bodhisattva. It's kind of what all this is really talking about. So here, back to this book, and then I'll conclude this powerful transformation. Read again from Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche about these 3 samadhis. Sadhana is not something we make up. There's actually no real difference between our Buddha nature and the state of Dharmakaya of all the Buddhas. So rather than this practice being a way of creating an imagination of the state of a Buddha, we don't have to create anything. We should allow our nature to be what it actually is, which is no different from that of all the Buddhas. Just read the sadhana's lines while leaving the mind in its natural state, and the 3 samadhis naturally occur. So just read the sadhana's lines while leaving the mind in its natural state, and the 3 samadhis naturally occur. And then back here, page 13, the importance of this yidam practice, or this visualization stage practice in Tantra Mahayana. Yidam practice has great benefit. Mipham Rinpoche had a vision of Manjushri, his supreme deity, and through that he became a great pandita, an extremely learned scholar. Many of the Indian Mahasiddhas practiced Tara sadhana. They combined recognizing mind essence with a yidam practice and attained accomplishment. All the life stories of those who became great masters tell of yidam practice. You never hear of anyone saying, I achieved accomplishment and didn't use any deity. I didn't need to say any mantra. The yidam practice is like adding oil to the fire of practice. It blazes up even higher and hotter. Visualization stage practice is critically important in Tibetan Buddhism as a skillful means to awaken our wisdom awareness. And then last here, this is like simple way to kind of go about this. Page 8. If you train in just one deity, like Vajrakalaya, practicing it first within the structure of the 3 samadhis, and then while recognizing mind essence, I can guarantee that within this one lifetime, you can accomplish both the common and supreme siddhis, the supreme siddhi of complete enlightenment. And here he makes it even simpler. Page 9. Practice in a simple way like this. First, remind yourself of being the deity. Thinking, for example, I am Vajrakalaya. Then recite the mantra of Vajrakalaya, or whatever mantra you're doing. Or simply say Om Ahom, this whatever mantra you're doing. Next, recognizing that the one who imagines the deity and chants the mantra is none other than your own mind. That's it. Have conviction that I am the deity. And while you sustain that conviction, the certainty, wisdom, recite the mantra of that deity. And then while you recite the mantra of the deity, with certainty, wisdom that you are the deity, recognize that everything is your mind. This is called deity, mantra, and dharmakaya. These are the 3 samadhis. Deity is the seed syllable samadhi. Then the outreaching, expansive capacity of mind, that's actually called wisdom speech, or mantra. And then the dharmakaya, that's the true nature samadhi. So this is the union of the 3 kayas. I am the deity, recite the mantra, this is all my mind. This is, simply put, transcendental wisdom rainbow body. Everything. So page 9, in this way, using the single thought, I am the deity, visualization takes no more than an instant. This instantaneous recollection, bringing the deity vividly to mind in an instant, is the highest and best form of visualization. With your voice, chant the mantra, and with your mind, recognize. It is perfectly all right to decide that this type of practice is sufficient and all-inclusive. It's not like we have to please the wisdom deity, which has no thoughts anyway. Wisdom deities don't get pleased or displeased. So it is really more a matter of making up your own mind and practicing in this simple, all-inclusive way. This is my opinion. Maybe I'm being too simple here. On the other hand, maybe it is true. Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. It's all pure gold. So thank you. I thought to bring it to a simple point at the end. In the end, we can think imaginative play and all this boundless beings and how do I kind of attune to them like naturally with actual like accuracy. Then if we really, in our own practice, as we're developing this capacity, have that Vajra courage, I am the deity. Recite the mantra as the natural expression of the nature, self-resounding mantra. And then recognize this is all mind. Outside's mind, inside's mind. Perceived is mind, perceiver's mind. It's all mind, it's all the deity. And just let yourself be the deity. And this is the deity's mandala. And this is the mantra energy, the movement of the mandala. And just allow it to be there. And at the conclusion of the sadhana, following exactly how to create the sadhana and how to dissolve the sadhana, exactly according to the lineage instructions, allow it to dissolve. And then these samadhis all dissolve back into the true nature samadhi. And then everything is revealed as like a beautiful, artistic, imaginative display of creative, transcendental wisdom rainbow body. And its emptiness and its outreaching clarity capacity and their natural union of wisdom and compassion inseparable. So that's kind of a brief talk today. And then we'll go on to the Dudjom Tersar Ngondro practice. So we'll begin here. This Dudjom Tersar Ngondro practice, I think, is page 17 with the spontaneous calling the Lama from afar by His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche. So I hope this was helpful. If I'm saying anything wrong or doing something, any mistakes, I really apologize for them. We're really just, I'm trying to repeat these words of these great masters and kind of also offer some resources that if any of this is curious for you or you like want to look further, then these resources are all available to us. And then in addition, we have these practices we can just do in a really simple distilled way, which Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche is just like Raga Ase, just like Mipham Rinpoche. They can take this infinite, complex, utterly profound and vast Buddha Dharma and distill it into these essential, practicable, like very pithy instructions that we can really taste the benefit in our direct experience with very little time or effort. So here we have this great fortune. The Dudjom Tersar Ngondro is a perfect example of this, a term of revelation by His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche. It's exactly like that. It includes all of the Buddha Dharma in a very simple, concise, easy to practice way. So we're utterly fortunate beings in this time. And we need to really use that fortune because not everyone has this fortune. And people need us. And we need to show up for them. And I need to show up for me too. This world's not getting any like more, nice and kind and common sense and really intelligent. It's kind of like, this is getting really tangible time. A lot of tangible like warring, tangible backlash against things. There's so many of these elements are getting so distorted, just like echo chambers of distorted, very tangible, gross level kind of like five qualities of degeneration age. This is a time before it's worse to really recognize that inherent goodness of oneself and others. We can take time, set these times aside for ourselves, and get more of a confidence in this. At the very least, even if we can't do some big outreaching thing, when our elements are dissolving and we're dying, we can recognize this nature with confidence. And we can have this compassion come out just like so easily and just love beings. And just love, like there's no really big difference between outer and inner, perceiver and perceived. It can just be love, be compassion, wisdom, like be transcendental wisdom rainbow body. This time's coming for us. This time's really coming. tick-tock. I mean, this gray is like getting grayer, by the minute. When the time comes, like, I want to try to have confidence in this. If we can recognize the meaning of these teachings, right now it's a perfect opportunity that when we die and all these elements break up and it's just right in front of us, this nature of our mind will be full-on vibrant display of sound, color, light, like all this, and the deities, everything. It'll be brilliantly, just immaculately, display. If we can relax and be like, I am deity, this is deity, have compassion, this is just a rising movement of the nature, it's all my mind, we will go to Dzogchen. The Buddha is so strong on this. Lama Rinpoche is so strong on this. Khenpo Rinpoche is so strong on this. So this is really what we're practicing. We're not just trying to be good Buddhists or something. We're trying to get free. Recognize this is all perfect and pure. And this is how to do it with these practices. And so that's kind of my little kind of obsessive ranting kind of conviction that I'm just telling myself, Dragpa, get your shit together, Dragpa. It's easy to say this stuff, but we really actually have to get that conviction. Then if someone says a nice thing, it's a rainbow. If someone says a mean thing, rainbow. We get sick, rainbow. We win the lottery, rainbow, we become indestructible wisdom nature. Then anyone we engage with, we're just naturally going to love them in a skillful way. Then everyone, when they say the Buddha was a friend to everyone, we'll become that. We will truly be a friend to every single being, forever. Then we'll really be fulfilling our Bodhisattva vow. So really, thank you so much. We'll go to this page 18, the prayer of calling Lama from afar by His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche. Really, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Quick summary. It's good. This is a quick summary. We covered a lot. So imaginative play of imaginative play beyond the 8 worldly concerns. This all basically comes down to fearlessness. How to fearlessly, creatively engage with experience in a way that really loves beings and really compassionately responds to them and works with them and encourages them. And that means encourages me and responds to me and works with me, like fearlessness. That's really what this is coming down to. It's like a key essential point of Tibetan Buddhism or Vajrayana path. That courage, I am the deity. This is good. This is pure. Everything is enlightened wisdom awareness. And it's easy to say transcendental wisdom rainbow body. It's so easy to say that. But to recognize that now, and an hour from now, and a day from now, and a week from now, and when real challenges happen, that's really when we get to see for ourselves how much we really absorb the teachings into our hearts. And so here, there's a quick Dzogchen deity practice, meeting your true nature. This is so beautiful. There's another compilation of books. This Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, once again here, it says, talking about after we die, right? Big challenging time, right? The sounds in the bardo, so this is after we die. The sounds in the bardo are not small noises. They roar like 100,000 simultaneous thunderclaps, and the lights and colors shine with the brilliance of 100,000 suns. Later, when the deities begin to appear, the largest are the size of Mount Sumeru, while the smallest are no bigger than a mustard seed. The deities are vibrantly alive and dance about. Faced with this spectacle, you have 2 options. Either you panic with fright, or you recognize them as your natural displays. This is why it is incredibly beneficial to practice in this life, so you grow familiar with your own natural displays. Otherwise, facing them in the bardo will result in deep confusion and bewilderment. Fearlessness. So then Rinpoche's An Essential Journey of Life and Death, again, they just emphasize this same point in a different way. In the Vajrayana, this is 306. In the Vajrayana teachings, it often says that in order to do visualization practice, we need to have courage and fearlessness. It's a big job to fully embrace this beautiful, special view that has never arisen in our heart or mind before. This view will completely smash our ego. Therefore, we need courage. We need fearlessness. These are so important. If you have fearless courage together with skillful means and wisdom, you will conquer the world. In this case, we're conquering all of our habitual patterns and the negative emotions that are like hidden tigers, such as anger, jealousy, and hatred. They're very aggressive, hiding behind the scenes, showing up at any moment to attack us and others. To defeat and overcome these negative emotions, we need courage and fearlessness. That's why the Buddha is named Conqueror. The Buddha is not the kind of conqueror who attacks, destroying cities and murdering people. The Buddha, as well as all the Bodhisattvas and Arhats, totally conquered negative emotions and habitual patterns. They're not creating more suffering. They create everlasting joy, peace, and happiness for all beings. They're true conquerors, true warriors. Now we're following in their footsteps, sitting on their thrones. In order to embrace this view, we need courage, confidence, and fearlessness. So this is imaginative play beyond the 8 worldly concerns. This is like what it means to be an artist in the Tibetan Buddhist sense. And this view is exceptionally specific. It's not just some easy transcendental wisdom rainbow body. We just say that. We can get to the heart of it with the key essential points like Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche said. And the deity, recite the mantra, recognize this is all display of my mind. There's also, this is interesting. I really wanted to mention this today, which is unusual or fun, interesting. In this book, Entering the Way of the Great Vehicle, Dzogchen as the culmination of the Mahayana. This is by Rongzompa Chukyi Zongpo. This is the great Rongzompa. This is one of the 2 pillars, one of the 2 omniscient ones in the Nyingma school of Buddhism. Longchenpa and Rongzompa. This book, when this became translated, Khenpo Tselwan Dongyal Rinpoche said, please get that and sell that in the Chiso Dharma store. Entering the Way of the Great Vehicle. This is one of the few texts by Rongzompa that survived. Rongzompa. So that's that. This is about how this fearlessness is not just some wishy-washy fearlessness. Page 108, Rongzompa. This is the great perfection as intimate advice. How is an object resolved through intimate advice? When resolved decisively, the significance of the object is recognized in connection with several points. All phenomena are resolved to be empty and selfless. Without inherent nature, absent of production, qualitatively the same, and non-dual. On occasion, the meaning of these terms may overlap, and at times they indicate that there are verbal points made precisely in accord with the terms that are used to express them. So this is a really technical book. This is talking about the Dzogchen view, what Dzogchen means by transcendental wisdom rainbow body. Resolved to be empty and selfless, without inherent nature, absent of production, qualitatively the same, and non-dual. This is like a roadmap of all the philosophical teachings of the Buddha, right there in that one line. This is exceptionally specific. This is how we get to transcendental wisdom rainbow body. Shravaka view resolves that everything's empty and selfless, but they still think there's inherent nature of objects. Mind-only school sees that everything is empty, selfless and empty, and that all phenomena, the 2 emptinesses, all phenomena, outside and inside, perceiver and perceived, are empty of inherent nature. But they still posit causation. They call it dependent origination, dependent arising. That's a second nature in mind-only school. Then, Sutra Mahayana and Madhyamaka, the middle way, they refute that there's no cause, there's no effect, there's no samsara, there's no nirvana. They refute. They say it's absent of any production, no cause and effect on the absolute view. But they do assert there is a correct relative truth. Then comes Tantra. Tantra refutes that there's a correct relative truth because they say it's all pure, not just one. There's not correct and incorrect anymore. They say it's all pure, but they still rely on certain techniques of ascetic practice in the outer tantras to establish that purity. Then in Dzogchen, in the inner tantras, they say it's all non-dual. They don't have any techniques they use. They call it a path of non-progression path, effortless. And in this way, the Dzogchen view, what they mean transcendental wisdom rainbow body, is resolved to be empty and selfless, without inherent nature, absent of production, qualitatively the same, and non-dual. And that's what we mean by Dzogchen, transcendental wisdom rainbow body, which is what we can achieve if we just do these 3 simple points. I am the deity, recite the mantra, recognize this is all mind, display of mind. And then this, when the bardo comes, or when really challenging times come, that fearlessness will be there. We'll have that courage through these very specific ways, put in really pithy, actionable statements that we can really use right now. Then we'll actually achieve that accomplishment. And in the next life, we'll become really courageous heroes for the benefit of every single being we ever come in contact with from that point on forever. I pray that this happens for all of us, like right away. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Thank you.